Over the weekend, I had the chance to go to NOLA Time Fest 3. It's a Doctor Who convention in New Orleans. It's their third year doing it, so it is a very small Doctor Who convention, but as far as I know, it's the only Doctor Who convention within 100 miles. It was a very small, like I said, it was a very small convention, but what was there, I was actually expecting it to be a lot smaller than it was. So I was pleasantly surprised when I got there, and I saw they had a great show floor. They only had a couple of rooms really set aside for panels, but they had panels going on every hour, just one right after the other. And they had a lot of really good panels. The showroom floor had a lot of shops from around New Orleans and different organizations selling stuff that was related to Doctor Who or even to other fandoms like Sherlock, like Supernatural. They had a lot of great stuff. Tubby and Coos was there, which I've mentioned Tubby and Coos before, with the Funko giveaway. They were there with their shop, selling all of their Doctor Who memorabilia. I only had the chance to sit in on one panel. It was a panel that two of my friends were in, She Geeks and Tubby and Coos, Mid-City Bookshop. They were both on it with other experts on the topic, which the topic was the Moffat effect. They were talking about the good and bad that Moffat has done throughout his career as showrunner. Now, going in, I was a little hesitant because I'm pretty sure I've talked about it before. I am a big Stephen Moffat fan. I've definitely supported and enjoyed his run as showrunner. I liked it more than I liked Davies. Not to say I didn't like Davies. Davies was very good, but Moffat has this grander scale of doing things with Doctor Who, and I like that. It's a lot grander. It's a lot bigger. He's taken the show and he's very much turned it into science fantasy adventure, and I like that. Whereas before it was, it was still adventurous, but it was a lot more science fiction, which isn't a bad thing. But for me personally, I have to admit it, I'm an adventure TV movie junkie. So I like good adventure, I like good action, and I like good storytelling. And I feel like Stephen Moffat has delivered those things very well with Doctor Who as showrunner. So going in, I was kind of hesitant because I know my friend She Geek's opinions on Moffat, and we argue about that all the time. I wasn't sure of Tubby and Coos' opinions of it because we had never had a chance to talk about Doctor Who. Her and I usually talk about Game of Thrones, which can be another video entirely. But I was, again, pleasantly surprised that it was a very balanced panel. There were a lot of different opinions on the good and bad. Some liked it, some liked Stephen Moffat, some didn't like Stephen Moffat, and all of the points that they made were very valid. There were a couple points made that I actually never really thought of before. One of which was that, yes, Stephen Moffat has been a little weak as a showrunner in some areas, but because Doctor Who has become such a global, huge TV show fandom, Stephen Moffat has been instrumental in bringing Doctor Who, out from just being on the BBC to just being all over the world and everyone loving it. That's been him. But because of that, the pressures from the fandom and from the BBC itself might be weighing in too heavily, making Moffat make decisions on what he think will make the BBC and the fans happy. If this is true, and I never really thought about it, and it's a good point, that if this is true, I feel like Stephen Moffat should find a way to block out those outside influences. I have a problem when a fandom starts to affect the show, and not the other way around. Supernatural, for me, is a great example of that. Supernatural, for the first 5 seasons, told this story, this one ongoing story, and it was great. And then after that, it really just seemed like they were just making the show just to make the show because it had a huge following and didn't want to lose that. Which I can understand that thinking, but I don't feel the show has been strong. The story hasn't been as strong. I haven't enjoyed it as much as I did. And I feel the fandom influences that heavily. And I have a problem with that. It's something I also worry about with Sherlock, which another point brought up was that they look at Sherlock as this amazing example of television that Stephen Moffat is running and writing. And because of that, because of the high quality of Sherlock, they're annoyed that Doctor Who doesn't meet that same quality, that same standard, or they feel it doesn't meet that same standard. Yes, Sherlock is an amazing show. As far as I'm concerned, it's one of the best shows I've ever seen on TV, but it's also a completely different entity than Doctor Who. Sherlock, I've always felt that Sherlock was more of a passion project for Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss, something to do on the side every couple of years to tell this small story, this small vision of Sherlock that they have, and I feel like it's been great that way. The problem is, because it's now become so big, that there's pressures from the fandom and from the BBC to make Sherlock even bigger, and I worry that the same thing that appears to have happened with Doctor Who will happen with Sherlock. But ultimately, to try and compare Sherlock and Doctor Who, I have a problem with that because they're so different. Sherlock and Doctor Who are two completely different things. Sherlock is a completely different tone, a completely different style, a completely different story than Doctor Who. So to sit here and watch Sherlock and say, well, why can't Doctor Who be as good? It's kind of a difficult thing to go with, because they're both just so different. And I personally feel Doctor Who has stood up, for the most part, to its usual level of standard as a good show. So I was just pleasantly surprised that the panel was very balanced. I was kind of going in expecting an all Moffat hate fest, and what I got was an intelligent discussion, and I thought that was great. The fans of Doctor Who in New Orleans are very open, very understanding, and very vocal and willing to discuss their opinions. It's just another way, the NOLA Time Fest is just another way to show that the South is a great place for nerds. You just have to look deep enough. This month's Funko giveaway is brought to you by Tubby & Coos Mid-City Bookshop. It's a great bookshop in Mid-City. It's my personal Nerdvana, and they were also on the panel of the Moffat Effect and had their booth there at the Time Fest, so you should definitely check them out. This month we're giving away a Tyrion Lannister Funko figure, so if you're a Game of Thrones fan or just a fan of Peter Dinklage as an actor, you should definitely leave a comment on this and any of the other videos this month in June, and you'll enter for a chance to win this Tyrion Lannister. If you had a chance to go to NOLA Time Fest, let me know what your favorite parts were. If you didn't, ask questions about it. Look them up online, and definitely make a point to go next year. Hopefully, as time goes, it'll get bigger and better, and have more support and more people showing up. So definitely support your local conventions. Check out NOLA Time Fest. If you have any questions or comments about it, leave them in the comments section. Also follow me on all the internets and subscribe to my channel so we can geek out some more. Thanks for watching. So Captain America, Thor, Hulk.